Guys, it's Pavi back with another video, back from sunny Malta, back from my holidays. I'm back refreshed, reinvigorated and remotivated to continue to expose some of the biggest corruption scandals in tennis. And boy, have we seen a lot of those in the last couple of years indeed. So before I left on holiday, we had the news breaking, which I thought was sensational news. And I genuinely thought that maybe the mainstream tennis media, even though we know that they're part of the establishment, would be all over this and say, what is going on here? And the news, of course, was that Jannik Sinner decided to rehire Umberto Ferrara back into his team after he had sacked him just a few months earlier, saying that he needed some clean air, and decided that he could no longer trust Umberto Ferraro and therefore he parted ways. Now, for those who are not familiar with the storyline of Jannik Sinner, or may not be familiar with my previous videos or kind of what I'm advocating for, I need to go and give you a bit more information about Umberto Ferrara. So Umberto Ferrara joined the Jannik Sinner team around about 2023, a couple of years ago. And he basically was hired as not only as the fitness coach and the fitness trainer of Jannik Sinner, but he was also positioned as the head of anti-doping controls. Now we know this because Darren Cahill in a video kind of told us with an ATP video, which you can have a look for yourselves, and he basically said that Umberto Ferrara was meticulous in whatever he did. He was also a trained and qualified pharmacist. So if you have someone who is completely aware of what everything Jannik Sinner takes, ingests, medicine, supplements, food, diet, drink, Umberto Ferrara was going to be the best guy for that man. Because he was a pharmacist as well as a fitness trainer. So we already know that his job was to make sure that Jannik Sinner took absolutely every care and attention to make sure that he would never ever fail a drug test due to the fact of something he ingested or he was contaminated with. So he had a very, very important role, and Jannik Sinner is one of the highest paid players on the tour. He would have got in the best of the best, and he thought that Umberto Ferrara was the best. However, in March 2024, Jannik Sinner failed not just one test but two drug tests for a performance enhancing substance which was found in his system. That substance was called Clostebol, which is known to build endurance, it's known to build muscle mass, but it kind of gives you that extra focus as well. So it's a very, very popular drug, particularly in Italy, where I think over 40 athletes have actually been caught doping with that particular product. So everyone from Italy is aware that this product called Clostebol is something that if you're clean and if you've got nothing to hide, it's something that you would be very, very careful for, that you don't ever get contaminated with it, because it's a known substance and a preferred substance by a lot of cheating athletes who use it to get an unfair advantage over their rivals. Now, we now know that Sinner and his team provided an excuse to the ITIA, and that ITIA excuse was that the reason that he had Clostebol in his system was that Umberto Ferrara had a product, trifurdamin, which is a spray used for cuts and sprays, which they can get from Italy, but in America it's a controlled system, is a controlled substance, and it can only be used if you have a prescription, and it can only be used for the person that's actually taking that prescription as well. Now, Umberto Ferrara was in America. He decided to take this trifurdamin with him to America, but he fully well knew that it contained Clostebol. He knew that, okay, and he's admitted to knowing that. And he was also very, very familiar with a number of Italian cases that of people that had had doping. Now, this is the guy who is in charge of Jannik Sinner's anti-doping control, but he had a product that he knew had a banned performance enhancing substance in that product. So that's bad enough. The fact that he's taking it to the US, where it's allowed only on prescription only, and it is only allowed for that person. So if Umberto Ferrara needed it or used it, he could only use it, and he has to have a prescription for it as well for it to be used in the US. Now, not only did Umberto Ferrara take this product to the US, he decided to give this product to Giacomo Noldi, who was Yannick Sinner's physio. Now, Yannick Sinner's physio had a small cut on his pinky finger. Normal people would put a plaster on it. If it's a really bad cut, you would get stitches on it. But Giacomo Noldi, who is a paid physio, he is paid to help Yannick Sinner with stuff like cuts and bruises. This is what his expertise is. Decided to go to Umberto Ferrara to ask what the best thing was to deal with this cut. Umberto Ferrara, who is in charge of Yannick Sinner's anti-doping, said, I've got this product which has got Clostebol in it, which shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be anywhere near Yannick Sinner. And he knew that Giacomo Noldi, Yannick Sinner's physio, was massaging Yannick Sinner every single day in Miami, in Indian Wells, in all the tournaments around the time that he failed this drug test in March 2024. March the 10th was the first one. March the 18th was the second one. The amount was very, very small, but that's inconsequential because it can be used as a masking agent, and it could have been the end of a cycle. We don't know at what level that was caught. So the fact that it's small doesn't matter. It was in his system. He then, in his hindsight, gave it to Giacomo Noldi and said, why don't you try this? He has been paid a lot of money by Yannick Sinner to make sure that he never, ever fails an anti-doping test due to negligence from his team or from himself. Okay, he's paid a lot of money. This guy is very, very good at what he does. He still decided to take that risk and give it to Giacomo Noldi. Now, this is obviously the story that they've presented. It could be complete pig in the sky story. We don't know, but this is the story that we're going with. So I'm only going with the fact that they've told us. He then decides to use this trifluridine for 8 solid days. 8 days for a cut on a pinky finger. Apparently he forgot to wash his hands or use protective gloves. But Umberto Ferrara told Giacomo Noldi he could only use it in my bathroom. You know, how many red flags are ringing here? Now, Umberto Ferraro and Giacomo Noldi carried on working with Yannick Sinner even after Yannick Sinner knew he failed this drug test. Massive red flags. You know, if you're hiring someone to look after you and they make such a glaring mistake, a mistake that could cost them their medical license, their pharmacy license, their license in tennis. He carried on working with them for months until it was actually brought into public knowledge. 6 months, almost 6 months after he had failed the test, it was in public knowledge. And Yannick Sinner then decided that he had to sack both Giacomo Noldi and Umberto Ferrara for negligence of getting him contaminated. Now, here's where it gets really, really interesting. This is the story that he told the ITIA and WADA, who reviewed it later on, and they changed their mind when they were initially going to take it to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, but they changed their mind. But the ITIA were the fundamental organisation that was in charge of looking after all of the investigations. And when people say they're an independent entity, they are financed solely by tennis. They are financed by some of the same sponsors that sponsor Yannick Sinner, including Rolex, primary sponsors. They are not an independent unit because they are compromised by the fact that they are funded by some of the same people that fund Yannick Sinner. But they decided, after seeing this news, that they wouldn't even punish Yannick Sinner at the time. They gave him a few days presumption. They believed his story. But they also didn't punish Umberto Ferrara and Giacomo Noldi. When they knew that they'd made these glaring errors, they were happy for them to go back into tennis and join someone else. Now, here's the weird thing. If someone's done that mistake, Umberto Ferrara is sacked. Almost immediately, he is hired by Matteo Berrettini, who was Italian's number 2 at the time, a very, very close friend of Yannick Sinner. Now, who in the right mind if someone has just had, if someone's in charge of fitness trainer, head of doping, apparently he takes this trophodermin, which has Clostebol with him, he carries it around with him. Who in the right mind would hire with him within weeks and say, oh yeah, you know, you made a mistake. Why don't you join my team and see if you make the same mistake? It doesn't make sense. Matteo Berrettini took that chance. He recruits Umberto Ferraro straight away. Now, on the eve of Wimbledon, Yannick Sinner has hired a new fitness coach and physio. They both leave on the eve of Wimbledon. Marco Panucci, Ulysses Badio, both left. No explanation given. You know, if a coaching team leaves on the eve of a Grand Slam, which is the pinnacle of any athlete's career kind of focus, if you're a tennis player, that's your main focus of your career, it means something really, really big must have happened. We don't know what's happened. So what happens after Wimbledon? Yannick Sinner goes on to win Wimbledon. He then decides to rehire Umberto Ferrara. Yes, you have heard that correctly. He decides to rehire Umberto Ferraro. So from all of the millions of fitness coaches there are, people that are in charge of head of doping, he could have picked anyone in the world. He's got the money to pay them whatever he wants to. He decided he wants to go back to Umberto Ferrara. This is the guy that apparently had trophodermin with him, which had Clostebol with him, which he then gave to his physio, and that's how Yannick Sinner got contaminated. It nearly cost him his career. It could have banned him for 4 years. Stefano Battaglino, a lower ranked Italian player, has been banned for 4 years for having a very, very small trace of Clostebol. Exactly the same excuse that Yannick Sinner provided, in that he also got contaminated. Is this a story that they're all concocting? But for Yannick Sinner, he was given 3 months because the WADA decided that they didn't want to go to court arbitration of sport. Why was that? When they were so adamant that Yannick Sinner and his team had 2 anti-doping offences and were requesting the mandatory ban for that, which is a minimum of a year and a maximum of 2 years. If it can't be proven that it was, if it was proven that it was intentional, it's 4 years. Stefano Battaglino didn't have that luxury. He was banned straight away, and then he was banned for 4 years, and he's still currently serving that ban also for a small bit of Clostebol. But in which mind would you go back to the person that you've just said has caused this mistake? A huge error, a huge red flag, and he's gone back to the same guy. Now, it makes me think that before I thought, maybe Yannick Sinner was the innocent party of here. Maybe it was something that his team was a negligence. How can you do that? It's insane. So it questions Yannick Sinner now. For me, I think he's got no social awareness. He's been protected so much. He's almost been treated as a victim. This guy has failed 2 drug tests. He's all of a sudden seen completely different results in his game. His body shape has changed. He no longer cramps in 5 sets. He is strong, he's fit, he's focused. He's hardly ever out of breath anymore. You know, all of the things, all of the attributes that Clostebol brings you, which we know was in his system. But he's treated like a hero. He has a 3-month break. He doesn't even miss a single slam. He didn't want to fight for his innocence at the Court Arbitration of Sport. The date was already there. The Court Arbitration of Sport thought there was a strong enough case for it to be heard, but Yannick Sinner didn't want to go there. So not only did he pull out of that, he then recruits Umberto Ferrara. Now, this was at the end of July. And I thought the media, even though they didn't want to, would have to pick up this story. You know, your Andy Roddicks, your Jill Grossers, all of your media that are all over everything that, anything that Djokovic does. He crashes, he hits a racket onto the floor and they're all over him. It's the news for constant hour. This was massive news and they all kept silent. No one said anything. It was complete silent. It was kind of a little kind of statement saying, yeah, Yannick Sinner's gone back to Umberto Ferrara, as if nothing's happened, if it's completely normal. It isn't completely normal. And the reason why a lot of tennis media and the people that they've brainwashed hate me and think I'm toxic and think I'm this and think I'm a hater and should be banned and all that kind of crap is because I will call it as it is. And the reason why they get pissed off with it is I've got an audience. I've got 32,000 followers, but I also get a lot of views. So they're thinking, well, we're trying to nip this under the bud, carry on like nothing, and I won't let them. And a lot of people are waking up now. A lot of people are waking up after that news. Even some of his own fans were saying, why is he going back to Umberto Ferrara? It makes zero sense. This is the guy that allegedly cost you 3 months suspension. It nearly cost you your career. And you're going to go back to him? So, you know, for me, I'm quite happy with that, because for me it shows that Yannick Sinner now thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he can do whatever he wants because he's got the protection of the media. And he probably is right. But that doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right. And we've got to keep the focus on here. And we've got to keep talking about it. The only real prominent person that talked about it in tennis was Paul McNamara, who said out of every single fitness trainer, he decided to go back to Umberto Ferrara. Umberto Ferrara didn't have any sanction for apparently having this Clostebol, controlled substance in the US, that he gave to Yannick Sinner full well via Naldi, full well knowing that Naldi was massaging Sinner on a daily basis. So I find the news absolutely astounding. We go into the media. Yannick Sinner is just about to start his Cincinnati defence tonight. He was asked a question yesterday. Can you give us a bit more information about why you've recruited Umberto Ferrara, the guy that you sacked almost a year ago? And Yannick Sinner declined to respond and said a statement's already been put out. A statement by his PR team. So Yannick Sinner isn't even comfortable to talk to people, the media, from himself, because it's been carefully drafted. Everything that he does is all drafted. It's all meticulously done. The propaganda arm is done, so everything's forgotten about Ferrara. He's now been shown with pictures with dogs, pictures with fans. This is all about conditioning. They don't want people to talk about it because they think it's normal, but inside they know this is not. This is not normal at all. And it's, you know, you just have to look at the case and the details and think, you know, if Yannick Sinner was innocent, why would he have gone back to Umberto Ferrara out of all the fitness coaches that you could have had? And Umberto Ferrara has said that this is a chronic condition that he had. That's what he said. That's why he had this trophodermin. So has that condition now gone? All of a sudden, a chronic condition means it's long-standing, it's permanent. Or is he still carrying that trophodermin with him? And is this a ready-made excuse? If Yannick Sinner then flails another test for Clostebol, they will say, it's obviously linked to Umberto Ferraro. They'll go through the whole process. If he's in fact being tested again, would he be tested? The ITIA went through a lot to prove that he was fine and they made the right decision. If they were then to test him and he failed again, that would completely finish the ITIA. Would they take that risk? I don't know. Would they even tell people? They, you know, if Yannick Sinner did fail the test and they took it, would they even tell the public that he failed it? Or they might say, "Oh yeah, we believe that explanation," and there's the explanation again. So there's so many red flags speaking in here, and people are saying to me, "Oh, move on, move on." I'm happy to move on, but all the red flags that are happening around Yannick Sinner is you can't ignore that. And especially for someone like me who wants a clean sport, both on and off the court, which I know that we're not getting at the moment. And I'm glad that, you know, Nick Kyrgios, obviously, he was the one who kind of said, you know, this is insane. Again, one of the very few players. A lot of the players, they're independents. They don't want to cause a lot of ruckus in tennis because they know that it can impact them. So that's why a lot of them have been quiet, but a lot of them know that this just doesn't add up at all. So all I can kind of say to everyone who is invested in this case is that we can't let up here. You know, we can't let up, and you know, all these things that are happening are red flags that are getting no media scrutiny. And if the media did their job and actually asked the questions, now think back to Djokovic when he wasn't vaccinated. You know, I know for a fact that they had media camping outside his home with his family. Elena and his kids were at home, and they had media camping outside. They wanted to know everything. He was scrutinised with every little thing, his boarding card, his where he got COVID from. People were ringing hospitals. This was constant media attention. We now have the world #1 player who's failed 2 drug tests. He agrees a settlement with WADA, which is unprecedented. And first of all, WADA hadn't previously appealed a decision. He then gets to pick his settlement straight after the Australian Open so he can come back so he doesn't miss any Grand Slams. He then has half of his team walk out unexpectedly on the eve of Wimbledon, and he then goes back to the same guy who he said caused him to fail the drugs test in the first place. You know, this is as sensational as a story as you can, but it's been trying to be swept under the rug, and I cannot do that. And this is nothing to do personal with Sinner, nothing to do at all with Djokovic. Djokovic, for me, is completed tennis. When he won that Olympic gold last year, he'd won every single title. He's got the most Grand Slams ever. I am happy, I'm content. Djokovic is not going to keep playing into his 40s and 50s. You know, Jannik Sinner can do what he wants, but I want a fair sport. You know, it's important for me, for morals, integrity. I don't have anything personal against Jannik Sinner, but if he is using the system to his advantage, then I've got an issue with the system, and I have got my duty to expose that to the whole of the world, for anyone to listen, because I know for a fact that there's been corruption in tennis for many, many years now, and it's getting to the point where it's so blatant, and it can be, and the reason we get away with it is because of our tennis mainstream media, because they're all part of this one happy family. They just think if everyone keeps doing what they're doing, they will get jobs, they will get sponsorships, and it's happening. You know, you look at the two biggest podcasts now. If I look at the two biggest podcasts now in tennis, the Tennis Podcast and Andy Roddick's Serve with Roddick, they're the two biggest, most popular. They are now getting sponsorships by big firms. They're getting access into Grand Slams. Unprecedented. The Tennis Podcast were given accreditations to access to Wimbledon. Wimbledon were even promoting them. You know, Andy Roddick and Serve to Roddick have now got some big, big players that are also established, are also pushing them. But do they ask the questions that go against establishment narratives? That's what you got to ask. And it's for independents like me, and for anyone who's got a platform on voice, even if you don't, you know, you can't be intimidated to be silent. And you know, people need to wake up. You know, and I personally, you know, the way I've been brought up, I can't let certainly something in tennis that has given me so much both on and off the court throughout my life. I can't sit down and be silent and just let things like this go. So this is the reason why I am keep speaking up. But I'm going to end this note to say Umberto Ferraro rejoining Jannik Sinner team is adding to the what I already believe is one of the biggest scandals in tennis. And I believe there's more to come out. You know, Giacomo Naldi has hinted that he will one day tell the people what really happened. You know, a lot of these people probably are on NDAs. And they're probably on NDAs where they know that if they speak up, they will probably be sued for a huge amount of money. But they're probably also fearful of their careers, and you know, who will then, where will they then work? So you know, there's a lot of stuff going on to play. But you know, Umberto Ferraro joining Jannik Sinner is a huge red flag. Don't let anyone else say it anywhere otherwise. You know, if we want to keep our sport with integrity, with morals, with principles, with everyone treated the same, you know, we have to speak up. And you know, we've just, you know, recently as well, last month, Tara Moore, who had her ban overturned when she went to Sporting Resolution, an independent tribunal, who said that she didn't take drugs intentionally, has now had her ban increased back to 4 years, the maximum ban. So they actually believe that she was intentionally doping, even though an independent sports panel decided that she wasn't. But that is not over yet. And I know Tara Moore is a fighter and she's not scared. And I think that case could well be the downfall of the ITIA, which you know, will be good news. But we've got to support Tara Moore. We've got to support all the honest players, all the clean players in tennis, all the players that are on and off court playing with fairness in accordance to the rules and regulations, and you know, that's what I'll continue to do. So yeah, so that is my take on a huge red flag of Jannik Sinner taking back Umberto Ferraro. That's a massive, massive red flag for me. And it probably just evidences how much he feels that he is untouchable at the moment. So wherever you are, I hope you're well, and then you know, looking forward to the US Open now. It's only a couple of weeks away. We've got Cincy, which has just started as well. So continue enjoying your tennis, and yeah, God bless you all, and I will be back with another video soon. And I'll be obviously doing a preview of the US Open in a few days, and let's talk about Djokovic and kind of where he is at, and what are my expectations of him going into the US Open. Okay, take care, goodbye, God bless, bye.